In today's episode, I'm really excited to introduce you to my guest, Jemma. Sitting down with her for this conversation was such a joy, and I know you're going to feel it too. We dive into the heart of ceremony on the land, the sacred medicine of cacao and other plant teachers, and the transformative power of sound. So, a little bit about Gemma. So, her path has been anything but ordinary. She first came into the spotlight in Australia through fashion, TV, and entrepreneurship, appearing on the very first season of Big Brother in 2001, creating a cosmetics line, and then later founding the raw food company Naked Treaties. For underneath it all, a deeper calling was quietly waiting. And that calling came alive in 2007 when she first connected with the spirit of cacao. And by 2010, she was holding sacred ceremony, actually channeling rituals she would later recognize as rooted in the Andean cosmovision. In 2012, her journey took her high into the Andes, where she apprenticed with the Queros lineage. Soon after, she met her maestro, Puma Kusepi Singona of Chinchero, who cast the cocoa leaves and told her, "Don't let the blonde hair and blue eyes fool you. You are a medicine woman. These are your mountains. These are your apples. You must return and train." And that moment, it shifted everything for Jem. So for years, Jemma balanced life as an entrepreneur and apprentice until 2017 when she released her business to fully follow her sacred path. Along the way, elders and maestros recognize not just her work, but the ancient seed she carries. Today, lovingly called Jamita by her Andean family, she walks the path of the Wuchumura and carrier of cacao in service to Pachamama and her children. Her work now flows through global retreats, ceremonies, pilgrimages to Peru, and advanced programs. At her core, she is a bridge between ancient and quantum, helping others awaken their own medicine, live in harmony, and share their gifts with the world. She's also the founder of Anchoring the Light, guiding people to remember their gifts through ritual and ceremony. And since 2013, she's been leading groups to the Andes, helping them reconnect with the magic and wisdom of the earth. Her mission is simple but powerful: to help us remember our divine nature and step forward as luminous leaders in our communities. In our conversation, we explore her story, the places that have shaped her, and how she weaves land, plant medicine, and sound into a way of life that is both mystical and beautifully grounded. I can't wait for you to hear it, and I really hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Welcome to Spirit Flow, the sacred space where we believe spiritual health is the foundation of everything. I'm Tara, and I created this show to support women who are ready to reconnect with their essence, clear energetic blocks, and lead from their soul. When we're spiritually aligned, our health, our relationships, and our purpose begin to flow with ease. Each week, we'll explore the deeper layers of healing through conversations, reflections, and multidimensional lenses: spiritual, energetic, physical, and metaphysical. Let's step into the flow. Well, Jem, welcome to the podcast. You carry, oh my goodness, the most divine light. And what I've loved witnessing over the years, just how your light just keeps strengthening as you walk further and further along your path. And just even from the sidelines, it's been such a privilege just to watch your journey unfold.
Oh, thank you so much, Tara. That's so beautiful.
I'm
Thank
just
you for
so,
having me.
yeah, my pleasure. I'm just so glad that we can just make this space and have a great chat, because I remember I first came across your work online, it was, and when I saw you, there were some videos of you in the Andes, and what struck me straight away was this reverence you carried for the land, for the traditions, for the unseen. And at that time, I'd only witnessed that kind of relationship through a lot of the Indigenous elders. And what really opened my heart was seeing how you embodied that same integrity and respect. And it reminded me that, the soul, it doesn't belong to one culture or lineage, right? It belongs to the earth. And when we honor her with sincerity and with reverence, that medicine, it just flows. And I just really want to honor that and what I've seen in your work so far.
Thank you. That is super, super touching.
Mm.
Yeah, because it's not easy actually deciding to, well, not even, it wasn't even a decision being called. It's a yes or a yes for me. The path that I walk, it was never a decision. I made decisions on paths that I walked before that. And then when this calling, and the culmination of everything that's happened up until that point too was all preparing me for that, of course.
Mm.
And when I tried to say no to it, or put it off, or thinking that what I was doing needed more of my attention, I got my ass kicked. This is in the Andes. They say that if you ignore it, you get struck by lightning. But these days, lightning can strike in many different ways. And it's not an easy path to walk, especially being in this skin suit,
Mm.
and with a lot of the stuff that does go on out there, in terms of the cultural appropriation stuff and all the things that we hear and experience and see and all of that. And I've had the privilege over the years of working with a lot of elders and from all around the world actually, and of course with my Andean elders. And it's really interesting because the elders, they don't see the external so much. What they see is your soul. They see your heart. And if they can see that that's genuine and pure, reverent, humble, and, as Papagai, the grandfather of the lineage that I walk with, would say, we need to take our consciousness, our awareness, our hearts back 1,000 years before the first protocol, when it was just about the woman or the man sitting with the apus, with the spirits of the mountains, sitting with the earth, sitting with the elements, speaking to Pachamama, when there was no shoulds and shouldn'ts and have tos and this belongs to that person and that belongs to that person. It's really about the authentic communion. That's the word. It's the authenticity that comes when we're in deep communion, not even beyond connection. And choosing, that's something that's innate to every single one of us. And for me, I think the greatest human dis-ease that there is on the planet is that most, I would probably say, large numbers of us are very disconnected from our true nature, which is nature. And that disconnection creates a disconnection from ourselves and a disharmony within ourselves, and then also a disconnection and a disharmony between each other. So for me, it's delicate because it's like in the honoring of the ritual that is passed down through certain lineages and traditions that are held very, very sacred and of course must be respected. The ritual itself, to replicate a ritual is something that, it's just respectful to receive permission to replicate that ritual and also to give back to and involve the people that give you that ritual and that permission in the first place. So this is where I think the lines get blurred, because often people will go and do, work with or sit with or train with or whatever in Indigenous cultures and then take the rituals. And it's like we have this thing in the West where we just forget about where the gift arrived to us from. They don't do that in Indigenous cultures. They are always honouring the person, whether you want to call it a teacher, a maestro, or just a being, a friend, that has gifted that wisdom to them in the first place. So there is this reverence and there's this consistent humility as well as confidence, because humility and confidence comes together. People think, oh, humbleness means weakness. It doesn't. It's the opposite way around. For me, in the humility is great strength, because the humility kind of guides our actions, so that when we're when we're acting in a strong way, taking strong decisions, the humility keeps those actions clear, keeps them free of ego. So this is something that I see in the West that can get really lost, and that's where the lines get blurred and things appear to be the cultures are getting appropriated because people literally extract. They come in and they take what they can, and then they go and forget all about that, and make something, out of it, replicating those things. That's different. It's delicate. So I think the wisdom is being able to see beyond, and not tar everything with the same brush. And I've had it many times. I can't tell you, like death threats, people standing out the front of my ceremonies, someone trying to get the front page of a newspaper to print something about this blonde woman who's sharing Andean. They're like crazy stuff, to the point where my elders in Cusco stepped up and said, basically, leave her alone. She's working with us, and she's got our permission. They sort of came to bat for me like that. But the thing is that I just stay quiet about it, really. I'm more than happy to share with somebody if they ask me about it. But, as I said to you just now, I think the invitation is to go beyond just, blonde lady with white skin from Australia sharing Andean traditions. But what you were able to see was the truth behind that. And that takes great wisdom and great mastery. So for me, that shows your level of mastery, and to be able to see that in someone else. So yeah, just thank you.
Oh, I know, and it's just how you hold, ceremony, and I'd love to dive into that a little bit deeper with you in a moment. But yeah, it's that right relationship, isn't it? And when you've got that right relationship, regardless of what you look like, that's it's like, and what I see in you is that you just don't do ceremony, you actually live it. And that's the difference between what you're providing into, or what you've been, as you said, being called or thrown into. Like, you didn't have a choice, it was just something that you knew you had to walk. And I remember even my first journey to the Andes was way back in 2009, I think it was, with my now husband. And we lived with my Spanish teacher's family in San Miguel in Peru. And we learned these modern rhythms of their life there. But it wasn't until I climbed Machu Picchu and really felt the vibrations of the earth underneath that I felt this deeper call. And, we later traveled with a shaman in the foothills of Cusco and sat in ceremony. And since then, it has opened up this connection to one of my now guides that I relate to, is a Peruvian elder. And he has become such a true teacher for me. And it's from that place in my heart, I just want to say thank you, Jem, for not only the grace and the depth, but the heart that you bring to this path. So, talking from that, Jem, and I just feeling into this as it's coming through intuitively, I sense you move in rhythm with these elements. Sometimes maybe the fire, sometimes more the water and the fluidity, but always attuned. And I'm curious if you could kind of describe maybe the season of life that you're in right now as an element of nature, of wind or fire or water or earth. What would it be now, and why?
That is a really, really good question. I would say right now, well, the first thing that came to me is fire, because there's been a lot of movement and a lot happening. But, also then the fluidity is also there of the water. And for me, grounding and being grounded and being in grounded space myself, and grounding in ceremony is very, very important for me. So there's always earth. And then the air, well, I am such a creative being, and the ideas and the wisdom, what flows to me consistently, like that my husband always says to me, I would go crazy if I was in your mind. He goes, it must be fun though. So the air is also super present. So I think for me, I love this question, but my answer to it would be that I'm always tuning in and seeing how I can create harmony by balancing those elements within, so that they're all in play all of the time. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. And love what they're teaching you about being in each of those elements and finding that balance and harmony. It's just like this living, breathing soul of like finding this rhythm of life. And I really want to touch on that, Jem, because you're such a traveler at heart. Like you move through between the Andes, Bali, Australia. You're currently in Amsterdam, I know, but you're carrying all these like pieces of each of these places with you, right? And I know every land has its heartbeat, its own wisdom. And in my work with a lot of the energy lines in astrocartography, I've come to feel how the earth herself seems to guide us to the places that hold that exact frequency we need at that time. And so when you sit with all the lands that you've walked and continue to walk, like the Andes, Bali, Australia, what threads of insight or remembrance do you start to feel weaving through you each time you visit them?
That is such a beautiful question as well. So, yeah, I feel super blessed in this way actually to be able to experience the gifts or the beauty or the frequency, the uniqueness that each of these lands offer. And I'm even more grateful that I have the awareness to be able to feel it. We all can, but we move, when we're traveling or whatever, we can be so bedazzled by the outer beauty that we can sort of forget to stop and take a breath and tune in to the Pachamama of the land. When we say Pachamama, people think that we mean Mother Earth, and to an extent we do, but it doesn't actually mean Mother Earth at all. Pacha, the word pacha, means time and space. One word, two things, two concepts, masculine and feminine actually in one word. Time and space, sacred time, sacred space. When we say Pachamama, we're meaning the mother of time and space. So Mother Earth is in this Kaipacha, in this realm, is the manifestation of the cosmic mother. So just as we have an oversoul or a monad, or we're all from one source, yet we're each individual with our individual spirit and personality and all of the thing, it's the same on Pachamama. So wherever you go, there is a Pachamama Nusta, we call her, which basically means the priestess or the goddess or the princess. It is the direct translation of that particular land that you're on. So to be able to connect to each Pachamama and then to the guardians that are working as allies with her in that area, be it the ancestors, the mountains for me in particular are the major, like the mountains are the manifestation of Pachatata, the fathers of time and space. We do have feminine mountains as well, we call them Nustas, but like just recently, for example, when I was on my honeymoon, Mars and I got married last year. We've been together 8 years, but we got married twice last year, once on Apu El Sungati in the Andes, and then the second time in Bali to honor both those traditions because we're both very connected to both of them. And we were on our honeymoon and we were in this place called the Dolomites, and all of these tourists are arriving to hike through this beautiful forest, and they're there for the beauty and the nature and all the things. But the legend of these three sisters, the Tres Chimes, and most people wouldn't even know. Soril, Mezena, Pichia is the name of these three mountains. And, the Soleil is means the throne to the stars. So she's like the goddess of the upper world, the highest self. She represents everything from creation. The middle one, Mezena, is the Kaipacha, is this realm in which we walk. So they call her the voice of the earth. And then Pichia is like the Ukupacha, the inner world in the Andes, and she's the one that's connected to the moon. So it just amazes me because so many people are walking through and they have no idea about the spirit, of these mountains and why they're actually there. And, you mentioned Machu Picchu, for example. The amount of times in the Andes too that I see people racing to get somewhere, you know, like they do the Inca Trail and they for 3 days, and then they go in, they go through the Sunday gate, they go click, 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 and then they're out, you know, and it's kind of a thing to tick off the bucket list. But the thing is that consciously or unconsciously, when you're arriving to these places, there's no mistake. You're being called there, the Pachamamanusta of that land, the Apus of that land, the ancestors of that land on some level have called you there for some reason, you know, because there's something that needs to be gridded, there's something that needs to be activated, there's something that needs to be received by you. Maybe it's a frequency that needed to come from your land to be activated in that land. So it's cool if you're aware of it and can be aware of it like we are. I mean, then it's just magic. Then you're right in the magic. But whether you're in the magic or not, it's happening, yes or yes anyway. And I get to see it at an even deeper level because of the ceremony that I'm working with. And number one, before the formal ceremony even begins, I'm already in deep communion with these beings, introducing myself, talking to them about what we're doing, asking permission, asking for support, seeing who's who, making sure that only the highest frequencies are there, transmitting, transforming, helping any energies that are stuck to move, you know, all of this before the ceremony. So what I get to see is that the energies of each land, the spirit of each land works with people in different ways, you know. So yeah, like some places you'll go and you'll notice that the ceremony has a real theme of ancestral healing, like in the UK, for example, because there's layers and layers and layers of history and culture after culture, and a lot of deep magic, you know, with the Celtic and the Druids and the back like this. So everywhere has something different. When you're in the Andes and you're working, because of the presence of the Apus is so, I mean, you know, you've been there, it's like it's almost impossible to be in a heavy process because everything is like the antenna is just. So when we're working in the Andes and working in sacred sites, it's always, of course, the healing is always happening. For me, it's all about healing through our highest frequency rather than digging around in the shadows, you know. We've done enough of that. Yeah. But you go into a sacred site and you put your hand onto a stone or onto an altar or whatever. It's all about remembering. Ultimately, that's what the medicine is about everywhere you go. But yeah, it's a real privilege for me and just to witness that, and also just finally to say, because I am working in temples a lot and in sacred sites a lot, both in the Andes and in Bali, and I just find my way there when I'm in Europe, you know, same thing, but not to the same extent. I get to have the privilege to go back every year. You know, so when I'm working in the Andes, I'm returning all the time to these mountains and to these temples. Same in Bali. I'm in ceremony a lot when I'm in Bali with Jedamangku Adi Buddha. And so I really understand and know what the purpose of those sacred sites and temples are, because they're like tuning forks. They're all attuned. They're coded. They're like computers. Like cosmic computers, yeah, that are coded for a purpose. So the purpose doesn't change, but what changes, and the masters don't change, like the guardians that are there are there eternally, but what changes is us. So every time I go, it's like looking into a mirror to see how far I've come, my relation and how I'm relating to that differently. And sometimes there's even messages from the guardians. Come back when we'll let you through, you know, in portals. You know, we'll give you a peek this time. You need to go away and do this. And then when you come back, you can come through for longer, you know, like this. Yeah.
I really love that, Jem, like, you know, how you personally honor or attune, right, to the land before you start to begin working on it. And I'm curious because, you know, there seems to be a common pathway for you because you are going from one, you know, place from Andes to Bali to Australia, and there seems to be like a common thread. And because you're noticing the language that it's speaking each time and the deeper layers that it's opening up and showing you each time, have you noticed that one place like almost activates maybe a certain code in you, which then carries forward into the next.
Mm. Yeah, it does. Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes more obviously than others. It also, for me, it's really important to, as a facilitator, to also carve out time and space for myself to have my own deep process, so that I can be super present with it and integrate what I'm being received, what I'm being gifted, so that I can then take it forward in my offerings, or, as you say, to the next place that I go. Often I will arrive somewhere on the other side of the planet, and I can feel straight away the ley line that is connecting to another, either sacred site or mountain, say in the Andes. It happens a lot in the different portals around Tiwanaku and all of that too, where you can connect into other places of the earth. So just like in the Andes or in Bali, the temples are all built on. In the Andes, we call them sekes. In Bali, it's the same thing. They say Bali still hasn't had a tsunami when all the other islands have been taken out. Even with a Agung erupting, there hasn't been a major cataclysm, and that's a huge volcano that could take out the whole island. And they really believe it's because there's 9 temples protecting the island, and they're all gridded. So one speaks to the other. So often when we're working in the Andes or we're working in Bali, we work in one temple, but actually we're touching 7.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful.
So the work that you're doing in one place, and same goes across the planet. Like I don't know if maybe you already know this, but there's this is amazing to me, actually. So there are, we have all the ley lines on the planet, but 2 of the strongest ley lines, well, you'd know this with astrocartography, are the dragon lines.
Yeah, the
And
energy lines. Yes.
yes, and they kind of do this Vesica Pisces kind of thing, right?
Yes.
And the 2 places that they intersect, one is at Uluwatu Temple, which is where my house is. I'm 5 minutes from Uluwatu Temple, and it comes out at Batucaru, which is where I do all of my ceremonial work. And then the other one is on the Peruvian side of Lake Titicaca, coming out on the Bolivian side of Lake Titicaca, and that's also where I do my work. Now, interestingly, these 2 places where they intersect are both water cultures, and they're all working with purification primarily as their thing. So it was incredible for me during the pandemic, being in Bali, witnessing how much work the island was doing on behalf of the world, that they don't even realize. The Balinese, they're so beautiful, so humble, and I wonder if they realize how powerful they really are.
Yeah. And how
And
powerful the land is holding all of
oh,
that too.
it's so
Yeah.
incredible.
That is
So three
incredible. That
three
is,
times, it's amazing, right? And 3
oh,
times a day they're in conscious ceremony. So
mm,
those ley lines, those dragon lines, are picking up all of the processes of the planet, and then where they're intersecting, it's coming for purification. And of course, the purification then becomes wisdom. It becomes healing. Like anything that's alchemized and transformed then becomes blessings. So
and to have a blessing, for the world, that is just, yeah, incredible. It's the biggest gift we can receive, really. Yeah.
yes.
That's really beautiful. And I love how, yeah, the dragon lines, yes, I'm very aware of all the ley lines, working with a lot of the sacred sites, even here in Australia, and activating a lot of the certain nodes, so the crossing of the ley lines here, and really kind of lifting up understanding it. And it's exactly what you were touching on before, is around the history, and understanding the history that the land has held, and maybe some of the unprocessed trauma that might be sitting in that ever so top level, that needs to almost like be acknowledged. And when you start to acknowledge and work with it, then the deeper layers start to come through. And I honestly feel like Mother Earth is just at this beautiful highest level of consciousness, and us humans, we're just like trying to like, they're like, come on, let's go. They're like, come on, lift yourselves up. You can come, you
Yes.
can be part of this. So it's almost like, the nature holding us, and they're just waiting for us to kind of come and meet them at this place. And it's such a beautiful part, and of that understanding of how powerful and how deeply connected those earth energy lines are to these sacred sites. And
Yes.
most of them do sit on, like energy conductors. They're built on the iron nickel, and that's the electromagnetic fields that are kind of pulsing through it. And when we connect with that, like, it can just, it can show us so much more wisdom and information that our souls need, at a personal level and a collective level as well. And I
Yeah.
really want to talk about, that ceremony. I want to kind of go back into ceremony with you, Jem, because it's something you do so, so beautifully. And as I said before, like, you just don't do ceremony, you actually live it. Look at you right now, and in the way that your place is set up. You've got incense burning there, and it doesn't feel like it has to be these big gatherings, right, or these altar moments, but it's like these small choices that you make when no one's really watching. And I feel that's where that real ripple effect happens, because when our intention is clear and aligned, people can start to feel that. And the same goes, if our intention's, a little off, it's obvious. So I'd love to hear from you, like, what does living in ceremony look like in just those really ordinary parts of your day?
Yeah, beautiful question. And before I answer it, can I
Okay.
just speak to something that we were talking about before? Because something was coming through really strongly. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Just when we were talking about these energetic centers, and this actually ties into what it is to live in ceremony too. But what I would just encourage people when you're visiting these places is to remember that it's all there for us, but what you choose is up to you. So in these centers, in these portals, and in the Andean tradition, we're working particularly in the portal of the south. It's that everything is seeded into the earth, all the wisdom, all the lineage, everything that has happened, that has transpired on this earth is there, and it's up to us to choose wisely, because we can tune into the trauma, but we can tune into the power and the beauty as well. So it's up to us, and I see this in places where, like in Isla de la Luna in Lake Titicaca, which was a temple, an island of the priestesses. And often when I take people there, the women will tune into a frequency of sacrificial stuff and all of this kind of thing. Now, the women of that island that were called virgins, they weren't virgins in the sense of the word that we know. They were actually powerful priestesses that had decided to go beyond the traditional roles of women to develop their magic as seers, as priestesses, as oracles, so that they could hold that feminine frequency for their entire community throughout the lake and beyond. They were descendants of the Lemurians. So they weren't virgins in the way that we think of them. They were more like chosen celibate priestesses. And, there were moments of ritual of offering their life, not from a point of sacrifice, but back in that day, it was a very different way of being. Their whole life was in preparation to offer their life so that they could become the eternal guardians that would remain there for the infinity of Pachamama while she's here, so that we could then arrive to receive and remember that wisdom and have that remembering of who we really are. So when you tap into, that's what I mean, like, it's all there. You can choose that, or you can choose to go into the mind-made story of this and that. Or, of course, even with people that was highly ascended like that, they're still human. There still would have been nervousness. There still would have been anxiety. There still would have been, so we can tap into those things as well. So I just wanted to put that out there, because I see it a lot, taking people into a lot of sacred sites, that we can have a tendency to go into the dramatic the trauma that we perceive is in these places, where we can actually shift ourselves towards receiving the magic and the beauty. And that is with everything in life, isn't it? You know,
Absolutely. Yeah,
whatever.
thank you for bringing that up, because you're right. And I guess, where I was coming from is like, once you start to learn a little bit more about, the history, of what the land was holding. And then when you do understand some of the parts that may be in that kind of space, but maybe that's a reflection of what needs to come through for you to be able to transmute and alchemize, to be able to see the beauty of that as well. So it's almost like Mother Earth is like reflecting that back into your soul, and your soul's able to like shift and work with that, and then allow it to start to become this beauty, rich source of wisdom that can come from that too. Yeah, I love that, Jem. Yeah.
Yeah, because nothing goes one way, does it? So when you're transmuting it, whatever it is that's arising, same for us in our everyday lives, you're not just transmuting it for you or alchemizing it for you, you're doing it on behalf of the collective, on behalf of Pachamama. I think that the key is, as you were saying, is it's the story. So it's like we can feel what's arising and be with the sensation of the feeling, and let the feeling move through us without attaching to the story of what our mind is showing us of what could have been there. And that is the greatest service that we can be in, isn't it? Like
Absolutely.
to alchemize without the story. Yeah. So going back to life as ceremony, I think that's a big part of it. It's there, for me, there can't be any separation between the formal ceremony and the ceremony of life, which is the true ceremony. And being in formal ceremony, whether it's being in these sacred portals like we're talking about, or sitting in circle, there's for me anyway, there's ways that I'm naturally in being in ceremony. I'm super present. When you're present, you're open-hearted. When you're open-hearted, you don't take on anything. It doesn't matter how big somebody's process is or what they're moving through. It doesn't matter what the energy's doing in the site, because I'm in my essence, because I'm fully present, because I'm in my feeling body and I'm conscious. That's the difference. It's bringing this consciousness into every moment. And then when we're conscious, we're not vulnerable and we're not taking things on board. But in life, you can be tired, you can be feeling unwell, you can be feeling stressed, and in those moments we become unconscious, and that's when we get hit with heavy energies, when we get overloaded with things, and where we feel like we can't keep up. So closing the gap of ceremony and living life as ceremony is becoming as conscious as I possibly can during the moments of the ceremony of life, not only during the formal ceremony itself. So and simple practices, like I say to our beautiful students that come and do Wilkasuyu or any of the Hampik any of the apprenticeship programs, that it needs to be something that is just enjoyable, that you love. It's not another chore, it's not another thing you got to do. So it's something that needs to, you want it to be supportive and for you. So for example, in the morning, I always connect with my mesa, and it takes 2 seconds, like really, to put your hands on either side of the altar and take a breath in and say thank you to your apus, calling them in for the day, thank you to Pachamama, and breathe out. And if you can do that 3 times, the Sami energy, the high frequency energy that we receive into our being is so profound. And as nothing goes one way, as we're doing it for that, on every breath that we give out, it becomes a blessing for everything and everyone around us as well. So I always have an altar of some kind set up, very basic. Like if I'm traveling, it's just a cloth and my mesa and probably my medicine cups if I'm doing that next to my bed. It's super simple. At night, I have as regular as brushing my teeth. I have a practice of alchemizing all the energies from the day. That means cleansing and clearing my field. And I do that not by flicking things off, but by transforming and transmuting them, by bringing myself back into the truth of who I am, which is the highest frequencies of love, the highest frequencies of light. I call in my guardians, my apus, to watch my sleep space. I alchemize all the energies in the room. I set up a crystal for my sleep space. I program the doors and the windows for the highest frequencies of love and protection so that I can rest deeply. And I clear any energies or alchemize any energies from the bed that may be resonant from the night before, especially if there's been strong dreaming or whatever. And if I need it, I program my dreams. So I ask to be, to receive or to be shown whatever it is that I might need in my dreams. Yeah. And again, it's, you know, it's a 3-minute practice or something before I go to bed. It's very natural and automatic. Now my husband loves it because he gets it too. He's like, this is so good. I just have a stick of Palo Santo next to my bed and I do that. So I think that this consistency is what I would call communion rather than just connection. And the stronger your communion becomes with your guardians, then the faster they are to arrive, and you eventually get to a point where you don't really even need to say it out loud. You just feel it, and they come very powerfully and strongly, very fast.
Yeah, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing, because and I'm curious, like, and I guess it comes back to Lars as well, like, have you actually noticed that when you live this way and you're continuously doing it, that the people around you start to shift too? It's like almost like they can't help but feel it too. Like, I'm sure Lars is probably just lapping up the good energy vibes that you're bringing in for you both.
That's it, exactly. And believe me, I'm not always in my highest frequency. I'm just like everyone else. Some days but the difference is that you can be in a funk about something, or be in a process or whatever's going on, but you know that process isn't who you really are. You know that difficulty, that situation or that challenge that you're moving through, or even your reactions to things, even your emotions, if they get big, that none of that they're not, that's just something you're experiencing in the moment, and it's not the truth of who you really are, and that you can never be disconnected from the truth of who you really are. And I feel like with that awareness also comes a lot of compassion for oneself, because rather than self-flagellating for not being spiritual enough because I can't hold my highest frequency, it's like, it's not the point. The point is to know that that's who you are, and be kind to your human self when it's moving through its stuff, and hold it like you would a 3-year-old child, and soothe, and say, it's okay, sweetie, you're gonna be good again soon. Just, it's only the attachment, I think, that we have to the good feeling states, isn't it? We forget that the good feeling. And I laugh so much because so many times I hear people, and I actually joke about it with some people, because they're like, oh, I've been in such a process. Oh my God, it's been huge. I've been squeezed, like going through the birth canal, but now I'm fine and everything's great and it's going to be good from now on. And I'm like, tick, 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 watching the clock. Because what goes up must come down and must go up again. It's expansion and contraction, right?
Yeah.
So
natural laws.
Natural laws. So I think when we're in the expansion, it's not that we don't contract, we just get comfortable with the contraction. It's like, okay, there it is. We just watch it.
Yeah, that's so true. Pass. That's so true. I can totally relate to that completely. Jim, I really want to talk into a bit of plant medicine and the responsibility around it, because I know for both of us, plant medicine has been a doorway into such a deep remembering, and yet it carries so much responsibility. And part of that, I feel, is about being in real reverence with the plant teachers, listening to the land that they come from, and really honoring the custodians who have really carried these traditions for so long. And to me, that feels like what right relationship truly is. And I want to know from, I guess, your experience, from your personal experience, what do you wish more people understood before stepping into ceremony in this way?
Yeah, well, I could speak for a long time on this one, because it's a yeah, I know, it's a big thing, and having I've been serving Wachuma now for 13 years. So I've seen, you know, back in when I was apprenticing, it was around people. There were, you know, the medicine communities were happening and all of the things, but it's just exploded now. It's gone, yeah, it's gone a little bit crazy in some ways. And my initiation into the medicines was not the best, actually. The medicine itself, it was with Mama Ayahuasca, and she was beautiful, but the facilitation was just like, wow, you know, it was so messy. There was so much stuff going on in that circle. For me personally, I had 6 months of borderline psychosis, like could not get back into the body. And again, it was not the medicine, it was the lack of safety and skill, I believe, that the facilitator had in that space. Now, the beauty of that, because nothing happens, as we know, to us, it's all for us, and nothing is by mistake, is that was strangely, I was like, I'm never doing that again. It was like that. But at the same time, there was a spark in me that knew that that's exactly what I was meant to be doing, and that I was learning how not to do it. And that the spiral that spun me out into led me to my first teacher, my first Andean teacher. He was the only one that could actually bring me back into the body, a little elder from Queros called Don Basilio. And he did in 20 minutes what I couldn't do and no one could seem to do for me over a 6-month period. And it was so humble, yet so powerful and so profound. But it's very, like Maestro Panduro used to say, you know, when we're working with opening these doorways and we're opening the psyche and we're calling on the spirits of the plants, we're also calling on a lot of other energies and a lot of other spirits that, whether we know it or not, are helping us in the ceremonies, especially when we're using Icaros. So we need to know how to liberate those beings as well, because they're actually coming in service. There's so much that is happening on the unseen realms that it's like playing a violin. You go to a concert and you see like a maestro playing the violin and you're like, wow. And in some way, even though it's difficult, it just looks so effortless. It looks like it's really easy. And it's the same thing in facilitating plant medicines on the surface to the people. And remember, you're deep in a process. You've had the medicine. So you actually, what appears to be like nothing's going on to you, everything is going on. Like the facilitator or the shaman is, even if they're dead still and not doing anything, what's going on the different levels of consciousness and how we're in service to the energy that's arriving to the space, how the level of protection. You're like a security guard, you're watching everything all of the time. And really what you're doing is you're keeping that container in its highest frequency so that the beings in the container are able to journey. I work a lot with doctors, a lot with APUs that are working with me and reporting back to me on how people are doing and what's going on for them in their processes, what they need. My communion with the medicine is like that. I mean, I've pledged my life in service to the frequency of this medicine. I love Maestro Wachuma so much. And so the medicine is very clear, like in my own journeys all day. It's just like he's talking, and do this, and you do this, and this about this, and this about. So that's my level of communion with the medicine. So he's doing that for me with the people in the space. You know, like someone's high self is talking to the medicine is telling me this is what needs to happen. So if you don't have the experience to understand how to work in those realms, if you haven't traveled to the far out reaches of the cosmos and know how to get yourself back, then how are you going to know how to get somebody else back if they go there? Because they can. You know, for me, part of my training, oh my gosh, I used to sit in Maestro Puma's temple in his house and drink 5 of those cups. Yeah, wow. That is big. That is a lot of medicine. And then he would drop me in Cusco with errands to run. So I'm dissolved, like there is no more 3D. Everything is, color and frequency and pixel. And I'm walking through with feathers sticking out of my backpack on my own, not speaking Spanish, blonde lady in the middle of Cusco, like running errands. So it was learning to be able to walk between those worlds. So what I see that can cause a difficulty is when people come in and they have these beautiful peak experiences. They are totally, again, this Western thing of not really that we do. They don't do this in Indigenous cultures. In the West, we're like, oh, I had an amazing journey. It's really easy. This medicine's beautiful. It's so easy. I can do this, right? And so then people drink medicine once or twice, and then all of a sudden they want to serve it. And then, they miss all the steps. And the biggest step is that it can't be something you do. If you're going to sign up for that, it has to be something you become. And that is a massive responsibility. All of the things that go along with it, from the legalities to the people, because things happen. Are you ready and willing to take responsibility for that? Do you know what to do if something happens in your ceremonial space where somebody psychologically or physically gets themselves into trouble? I actually had a beautiful woman. She's in my Humpik group, which is a really deep apprenticeship. And we're very clear. We're like, this is not an apprenticeship to serve medicine. This is not a permission slip to serve medicine. This is a training on how to work as healers, on how to manage ceremonial space. I teach people to serve the medicine of cacao, because cacao can be really profoundly deep, but it's safe. And it has a sweetness to it that, is safe to work in groups. It's safe to work in communities. But people still have really deep processes. And the ceremony, it's all in the facilitation of the ceremony that can make that ceremony super transformational and deep. It's not a fluffy cacao ceremony, it's really like this. But, the stronger medicines. And so this beautiful woman, she came and did this, and she actually asked me if I would speak into this in the group, because she had an experience where she was like, I'm going to serve mushrooms. I love it. I love mushrooms. I've been working with them, And so she started doing mushroom ceremonies. And of course, somebody went into psychosis and she was freaked out. And not only was it traumatic for the person that flipped out in the ceremony, but it was traumatic for her, because she was like, what have I done? I didn't know what to do. And she realized that she wasn't equipped. She thought she was, because she had done some ceremonial stuff, but it's a whole other thing. And so the medicine teaches you, but it's time, and it's being willing to offer your life in service to that medicine.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
vocation.
powerful. Mm,
Yeah.
mm. And I love
Yeah.
that, Jem. Thank you for sharing your insights and your wisdom on that, because that sense of responsibility has obviously shaped the way that you personally hold space as well. As you said earlier, that you had that experience, but if you didn't have that experience, then you wouldn't know how to hold that, for future, occurrences as well. And this sense of responsibility that comes with it, each plant obviously has its own consciousness, and it will guide those who are ready or not ready as well. And I feel that when you're in this deep understanding of that teacher consciousness, that then you can start to listen to whether it's for you or not for you as well. But yeah, I really want to talk about that, and I guess for the people that do want to go and step into this or have this calling, to obviously you're saying, like, we need to really pause and reflect on before stepping into this work. And I guess that's probably one thing you wish people would really do, right? Is to pause, to really reflect, come into that inner essence of yourself, to really attune to whether that's the right path for you as well. Is that
Yeah, for
something
sure.
you want to talk about?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's like my crown is tingling as we're talking about this. When I personally had the call to serve the medicine, I had the awareness that the ego was still very much alive, because that it just is, you know, that we're humans and we have the mind and we have the ego. And so for me, I handed it over to the medicine and I said, if this is really what I'm meant to be doing, then make it obvious. And I purposefully took my hands off the wheel and let go of any seeking or searching and let it come to me. And it did. You know, it was not long after that, probably only a week or two after that, strangely, that I met Maestro Puma. And the first time I met him, he threw the coca leaves and he looks and he's like, I check again. And then he throws again and he's like, wow. He said, Princesa, don't let that blonde hair and blue eyes fool you. You're a medicine woman. These are your apus and you need to come back here as soon as you can and train as a watchmeta. And so I like burst into tears because that was he didn't know that what had happened for me. Earlier, only a week ago, actually, in a ceremony, something else had gone on and the medicine had given me the call and I just handed it over and said, if this is what you want, you show me clearly in a way that I can't miss. And so it came through for me in that way. And then even when I went back and started training with him, it's very different now, you know, as well, because of, you know, that was 13, 14 years ago. And things have gone very fast, very quick. There's so many more, you know, many more people that are bringing their teachings out there and things online and so many more people wanting to do it. So, you know, I was kind of fortunate to be one of Puma's handful, 7 to 10 students only. Back then, now is thousands. But not for Wachuma, but just in general. And even when I went back to the Andes and stayed with him and started to train, and he was, you know, sharing with me different things about the Mesa and all of the cosmovisions and and I so wanted to ask, you know, I was coming here to train as a Wachumeta, but no, medicine, Maestro Wachuma, you show me when it's ready. And then one day Puma turns up and he's got this massive cactus over his shoulder and he's like, today's the day. We begin, you know. So it was like this. And my training was nothing like what you would see now. I wasn't actually taught like that very much at all. What would happen is I'd get dropped in the mountains at about 8 in the morning and picked up at 6 that night. And you would sit there and listen. You'd listen to the earth, you'd talk to the mountains and let them teach you. And then I'd come back and share what I learned. And of course, it's universal, right? So it teaches you to be embodied. But I feel like the most important thing, if somebody really wants to walk that path, is first of all, refining your inner work, you know, because when you're handing someone a cup, you're handing them your essence. So you want to be not digging around in the shadows, not talking about that, but you want to be becoming as conscious as you can and living as consciously as you can. And I always say to people that the first thing you need to master is being in service. So that means not going and thinking that you're going to be the one facilitating the ceremony and handing the cup, but finding a mentor that you can be in service to. That means making soup, checking that everybody has sunscreen on, making sure they've got enough water, making them feel comfortable when they're there, giving them, you know, a hug or, you know, being there in service. Often that's not even a paid role, you know, that's something that, and that is the first thing to learn, that it's not about you. It's not about you being the best shaman ever. It's not about you serving the medicine. It's about the truth of why we're doing what we're doing is to be in service to the human heart and to do it because you are in love with it for no other reason other than that you are in love with the human heart and you are in love with this path of being in service. And if you are that in love with it, then the money doesn't matter. And the acknowledgement doesn't matter. I got my ego smashed. Like in a traditional apprenticeship, you get yeah, good girl, well done, keep going. You don't get any of that. You get the opposite. You get, you know,
Interesting.
very little acknowledgement, very little, because you have to learn to self-source. You've got to learn to be self-validating as well, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the thing I would say. If you want to do it slowly, if this is really your path, then what's the rush? Be patient and work in ceremony with things like cacao first, or without the medicines, find yourself someone to be in service to, and be in service without needing to be the shaman who holds the ceremony, because then it gets the ego out of the way.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, Jem, like you really do. You walk as this beautiful medicine woman carrying the mystical in such a grounded and embodied way. And at the same time, like you're living every day, like, with your relationships, responsibilities and all the human messiness in life as well. And as you mentioned earlier, this year you stepped into marriage with Lars. Congratulations, by the way, which is such a beautiful expression of love and partnership. And to me, that feels like part of your medicine too, right? Bringing the sacred into the ordinary. And I really just want to ask, like, how do you kind of personally bridge those two worlds without kind of losing yourself in either?
Yeah, well, for me, I'm a bit of a what do I say? A contradiction, I guess, in many ways. I love it. Even as a little girl, my mum laughs because I would get dressed up in my favorite dress and the best shoes in the wardrobe. And even at 10, like I'd put the lipstick on and then I'd go and sit in the dirt. And it was crazy, and be making rituals and things, and my dress is covered in mud now, but I'm still and I'm still like that now. So I really, this whole thing of that, because you're living a spiritual life or a shamanic life, that you have to look a certain way, and you got to wear feather and leather, and you got to be this, and you're not allowed to, you're not allowed to wear makeup, and you have to be all. It's just crap. It really is. It's such an old paradigm way of being. You see the most powerful shamans in the Andes, and you would walk down past the street and you would not even know that they are working in those realms at all. They just look like a guy who's just come out of the office and is on his way home, or has just come out of the fields farming, Even Papa Guy was a midwife, so people didn't know him as, people knew he was one of the most powerful Pacos, but his day job was a midwife. So I think it's just really important to, for me anyway, to enjoy being here in this reality, like there is so much deliciousness, so many things for us to experience and enjoy. And I am as comfortable camping at Upper Hegerty as I am in a 5-star hotel in the middle of Paris. It's like, it's all ceremony. It's all ceremony, everything. So I really love, like my husband Lars, he runs Rites of Passage for boys to men he does mother-son, father-daughter, and also father-son. So that's his passion project, but he's also an engineer. So that's and I love that he has this kind of very stable rhythmic thing, and that groundedness is what helps us to fly, to truly fly. So, there is no separation. It's allowing ourselves, I think, just to enjoy all of it without any limitation of I should be like this or I should be like that. It's like, enjoy going to the supermarket as much as you do going to ceremony, because it's all ceremony.
I love that. My cheeks are like hurting from like smiling so much. There's so much joy in your expression just then, and I'm just feeling it. It's just, yeah, my whole body's just like filled with that. And Jem, just before we wrap up, I really just want to touch on, because something I've noticed is that sound really seems to carry you, like it's woven through obviously all your ceremonies, and now you're like exploring DJing and working with frequencies. And in a way I feel like sound is a lot like plant medicine. Both the teachers that can kind of bypass the mind and take us straight into these deepest states of like remembering. And what is, I'm curious for you, just what does sound unlock in you that words alone can't?
Yes, I love it so much. And the thing is even before I was learned how to to actually mix, to DJ, to use the turntables and the tractor, which has just taken it to a whole other level now. But it was always still about, you know, the succession of the playlist. I actually had a really well-known DJ come to sit with me in ceremony with Wachuma, and she was like, you just DJ'd the whole way through that thing and took us on the journey. And I'm like, yeah, you know, like I'm there, and I can see where people's processes are, and the medicine's like, now we need to do this. And so, you know, you can use the frequency and the sound, and sometimes there's singing as well, but to take people where they need to go. But what it comes back to for me, and someone asked me this question on the weekend, so it's perfect. Everything that I do and share is all about uplifting us, not bypassing, but helping us to embody and remember and reach, touch, be in our highest frequency energy, because from that space, we can then look at all of the things that we may be working with, like the trauma or the whatever it might be, the heavy process or whatever. And when we look at it through the lens of our highest frequency state, then the healing for those things becomes very fast and very effortless. We can move mountains from those states much more than we can when we're like, you know, like this. I mean, in that's important too, because it takes us in and we feel, but it's so much where our mastery is moving more and more and more towards knowing ourselves as this, and being able to look at our contracted, constricted selves and, you know, send that frequency to those things to, so that they can be seen and illuminated and raised into, transformed, alchemized into that highest frequency. That's where we're headed. The power of that is through our feeling, of course. And when we access those high feeling states with an expanded viewpoint about what we're calling in, then that's when we're also in the quantum field and making things happen. So whether that's through, that's how I work with medicine, that's how I work with breath, that's how I work with sound. And wow, I mean, is music, I mean, I was a raver, and I was one of the original ravers, like not this 92nd time round bit. Like, I was on the dance floor in 1990 in the rave where you used to ring the number to find out
where it was, and you get the last minute call. You're like, it's here. You're like, okay.
And then you find your way, and you generally find your way to the rave from the sound, you know, and it's in these, yeah, you can hear the beat. And it was in these like abandoned warehouses or in quarries in the middle of nowhere. And you know, back then we would dance from 11 o'clock at night till 6 o'clock in the morning. And for me, that dance was all a communion. I was meeting with beings from other galaxies and other dimensions. On the outside, it just looked like I was doing this, but on the inside, I was like, so for me, whenever I hear a beat, and there's especially this euphoric kind of beat that lifts me up, I'm just like, boom, straight up there. And as a facilitator, when we go like that, so does everyone else.
Yeah.
So I love it so much.
Oh, your face is so lit up right now. It is just, yeah, you're just beaming and glowing as you talk about it. And I love it. I think we need more healers out there, right, to really kind of do this work, you know, because there is no ego. There is more of this frequency, embodying that frequency. And it's so needed, isn't it? Because you know, sound holds its own consciousness, you know, much like plants do, and guiding people into exactly what they need to feel and release is so needed right now. And I love the fact that, you know, these high vibrations, you know, can then just support that so instantaneously. I mean, like most things, but you know, when you're in that space, it can really amplify. I love that, Jem. I love it.
Yeah, and it's amazing, isn't it? Because I mean, we all know what it's like when you can be feeling whatever you're in, and you put on some music or you hear some music that like this, and it's such the frequency shift is so fast, you know, and yeah, it's just epic, so epic fun.
Oh, Jem, thank you so very much for sharing so openly, so beautifully, and just for letting us glimpse into the way that you walk your path. And you know, what you've spoken about today really reminds us that ceremony isn't just something we kind of step into every now and then. It's a way of being, you know, it's a way of listening and really honoring the earth, the plants, the sound, and the people that we walk beside. And it's been such a gift to really hold this conversation with you and to really feel the threads of your personal journey and to really witness the light that you continue to strengthen in yourself and share with others. So thank you for bringing your heart, your wisdom, and your medicine, of course, here. And I know everyone listening will carry something of you forward with them today. So thank you.
Oh, Tara, thank you so much for having me. This has been, I think, one of the most delightful podcasts that I've done. I love your insights and your wisdom. And it's been such a beautiful sharing. And all I would say to people is just bless everything. I was just, when you were saying about bringing more ceremony, people often think that they ask, why are you blowing into your glass of wine? It's not hot. Like, if I'm having a glass of wine, I see it as the blood of Pachamama. And so it's a gift to be receiving that. And so with each sip, I just thank you with each sip, just silently. And it's become so second nature that I do it. And as I say, people are like, is there something wrong with your wine? Like, you keep blowing into it like it's hot. But the thing is, this is just bless everything, bless it all and receive it all.
I love that. I love that. And I couldn't agree more. I think blessing something has such a unseen power that we don't even realize. So when we do give, we're still in that right relationship, even with a glass of wine.
Yes.
It is so beautiful. I love that.
Yes.
And so for those who feel called to connect more deeply with Jem and her work, I'll place all the links in the show notes so you can find her and follow along her journey as well. So thank you, Jem.
Thank you, Tara.
Thank you for sharing space with me today. If this episode resonated, come find me on Instagram at tara.hegerty to keep the conversation going. You'll find all of the resources we talked about on today's show linked in my bio under podcast resources. Until next time, remember, spiritual health changes everything.